The surgical scar across my abdomen throbs as I stand in the doorway of what used to be my home. Blood drips from my knuckles where I've been gripping the brass key so tight it's cutting into my palm. But I don't feel the pain. Not anymore. Behind me, sirens wail through the night air. Red and blue lights paint the suburban street in colors that remind me of the surgery room where I gave away a piece of myself 3 months ago. Where I literally gave an organ from my body to save the woman who would later laugh in my face. Mom. My 15-year-old son's voice breaks through the darkness. He stands beside me, taller than I remember, older than his years. In his hand he holds the evidence that will destroy them all. Are you ready? I touch the scar again. It's still tender, still healing. Just like the wound they carved into my soul when they handed me those papers. When they told me I was nothing. When they thought they had won. The front door swings open before I can answer. My husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, stands there in his designer pajamas, his face pale as death. His mother cowers behind him, her hand pressed to her side where my kidney now lives, keeping her alive. The kidney I donated. The kidney that was supposed to save our family. You, he breathes, his voice barely a whisper. What have you done? I smile. It's not a nice smile. It's the smile of someone who has been broken and rebuilt themselves into something dangerous. Something they should have been afraid of from the beginning. What I was planning all along, I tell him, stepping forward as the police cars screech to a halt behind us. You just never bothered to really know me. My son holds up his phone, the video ready to play. The video that changes everything. His grandmother gasps, recognizing what's on that screen. What we discovered. What we know. You want to know the funny thing about betrayal? I ask, walking past them into the house that has my name on the deed. Only my name, though they never knew. It teaches you exactly who people really are. And you taught me well. The first officer reaches the door. I hand him the folder I've been carrying. 20 pages of evidence. 3 months of planning. A lifetime of revenge compressed into this single moment. Officers, I say calmly, I believe you're looking for these too. Before we continue, please write in the comment which country you are watching this video. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in from. And if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe. Your support helps us bring even more epic revenge tales of life. Enjoy listening. The roast was perfect. I'd spent 6 hours preparing it, basting it every 30 minutes with a mixture of wine and herbs from the garden I'd planted with my own hands. The same hands that had held my mother-in-law's hand through dialysis 3 times a week for the past 2 years. The same hands that signed consent forms to be tested as a kidney donor when no one else in the family was a match. Steam rose from the plate as I set it in front of my husband, Richard. 15 years of marriage, and I still tried to make his favorite meal at least once a week. Even though he'd been coming home later and later. Even though his kisses had turned to pecks, his embraces to brief pats on the shoulder. Smells wonderful, dear, his mother, Eleanor, said from across the table. She lived with us now, had moved in when her health started declining. I'd converted the guest room into a comfortable suite for her, complete with her own bathroom and a small sitting area where she could watch her programs. My son Jeremy was the only one who actually smiled at me. Really smiled, not the practiced, empty expression the other two wore. He'd grown so much this year, shooting up 5 inches and developing shoulders that reminded me of my father. But his eyes, those were mine. Dark and watchful, always seeing more than people realized. Thanks, Mom, he said, already reaching for the potatoes. You outdid yourself. Richard cleared his throat. It was a sound I'd heard 1,000 times before, usually preceding some criticism about the house, my appearance, or my career as a freelance graphic designer. But tonight something was different. His hands were shaking slightly as he reached into his jacket pocket. Before we eat, he said, his voice strangely formal, there's something we need to discuss. The envelope he pulled out was thick, legal-sized. My stomach, already twisted from the recovery of the surgery I'd undergone just 6 weeks ago, clenched tighter. I knew what it was before he even slid it across the table. You don't live with someone for 15 years without learning to read the signs. Divorce papers, he said simply, as if he were telling me about a change in the weather. I've already had my lawyer draw them up. It's all very straightforward. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table, feeling the wood grain beneath my fingertips. 6 weeks. It had been 6 weeks since I'd gone under anesthesia and woken up with 1 less kidney. 6 weeks since I'd saved his mother's life. You're joking, I heard myself say. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew he wasn't. Richard never joked about anything. Eleanor dabbed her mouth with her napkin, and that's when I saw it. The smirk. The slight upturn of her lips that she didn't even try to hide. We never liked you anyway, she said, her voice dripping with a satisfaction that made my blood turn to ice. Richard only married you because you got pregnant. But Jeremy's old enough now. He doesn't need you anymore. I looked at my son. His fork had stopped halfway to his mouth, potato falling back to his plate. His face had gone white, then red, then a dangerous shade of purple I'd never seen before. What the hell? He exploded, standing so fast his chair crashed backward. What the actual hell is wrong with you people? Jeremy language, Richard said automatically, but our son wasn't listening. She saved your life. He pointed at Eleanor, his hand shaking with rage. She gave you her kidney. She went through surgery, missed work, spent weeks in pain, and this is how you repay her. Sit down, Richard commanded, using his lawyer voice. The one that had won him partnership at his firm. The one that usually made everyone in the room fall silent. But Jeremy wasn't everyone. No, my son said, and in that moment I saw myself in him. The same steel spine I'd hidden for so many years. I won't sit down. And I won't stay quiet while you do this to my mother. Eleanor laughed. Actually laughed. Oh please. He should be grateful. Richard's already being more than generous with the settlement. She gets to keep the car, and we'll give her 6 months to find somewhere else to live. Keep the car. Find somewhere else to live. The words echoed in my head as I looked around the dining room. At the walls I'd painted myself, the curtains I'd sewn, the pictures I'd hung. This was my home. I'd made it what it was. Every corner held my touch, my care, my love. Mom. Jeremy was beside me now, his hand on my shoulder. Mom, say something. But I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up, and all I could do was stare at the man I'd loved, the man I'd built a life with, the man whose mother I'd saved. He couldn't even look at me. He was cutting his roast as if this were any other dinner, as if he hadn't just destroyed everything. There's someone else, isn't there? The words came out before I could stop them. Richard's knife paused. Just for a second, but it was enough. Her name is Veronica, he said quietly. She's a paralegal at the firm. We've been seeing each other for about a year. A year. While I was taking his mother to dialysis. While I was getting tested to see if I could donate. While I was recovering from major surgery. He'd been with someone else. You waited, I said slowly, understanding dawning like a cold sunrise. You waited until after the surgery. Until after I gave her my kidney. Neither of them denied it. Jeremy made a sound like a wounded animal. You used her. You both used her. We did what we had to do, Eleanor said primly. I needed a kidney and she was a match. It would have been foolish to divorce before the transplant. What if she'd refused to donate out of spite? The room went very quiet. Even the clock on the wall seemed to stop ticking. I stood slowly, my hand pressed to the scar that still ached when I moved too quickly. 6 weeks out from surgery and I was still healing. Still weak. They'd counted on that. I need some air, I said. Don't be dramatic, Richard sighed. Just sign the papers and we can all move on with our lives. I walked out of the dining room without signing anything. Behind me I heard Jeremy's voice, low and dangerous. You're going to regret this, he told them. Both of you. You have no idea who my mother really is. What she's capable of. Eleanor laughed again. Oh please. What's she going to do? She's a nobody. A glorified housewife who makes logos for small businesses. She has no money, no connections, no power. We hold all the cards. I stood in the hallway listening. Let them think that. Let them believe I was weak, beaten, broken. They had no idea about the accounts Richard didn't know existed. The properties in my maiden name. The connections I'd maintained from before I'd buried myself in the role of devoted wife and mother. But most importantly, they had no idea about what Jeremy and I had discovered 3 weeks ago. What we'd found in Eleanor's room while she was at a doctor's appointment. What we'd documented, recorded, and safely stored away. I touched my scar again. It hurt, but pain was just another teacher. And I'd learned so much from pain lately. Jeremy, I called softly. Come help me with something in the garage. My son appeared immediately, his face still flushed with anger. Mom, we can't let them. Shoo, I said, pulling him close. Remember what we talked about? About being patient. His eyes widened with understanding. You mean? Tomorrow, I whispered. We start tomorrow. But tonight we let them think they've won. He nodded slowly and I saw it again, that flash of something dangerous in his eyes. My boy. My protector. They'd made a mistake thinking he would choose them over me. What do you need me to do? He asked. Go back in there. Pretend to be upset but accepting. Let them believe you're on their side or at least neutral. Can you do that? I'm your son, he said simply. I can do anything for you. I kissed his forehead, breathing in the scent of his shampoo. Still my baby even at 15. Then let's give them the performance of a lifetime. 3 weeks before the dinner. I hadn't meant to find it. I was just looking for Eleanor's insurance card to take to her appointment. She'd asked me to grab it from her jewelry box while she finished getting ready. Such a simple request. Such a trusted daughter-in-law. The jewelry box was antique, passed down through Richard's family for generations. I'd always admired it, the way the wood gleamed, the tiny brass lock that was more decorative than functional. Eleanor kept it on her dresser, usually locked, but today it was open. I lifted the top tray, looking for the card among the tangle of necklaces and rings. That's when I saw the edge of a photograph hidden beneath the velvet lining. Curious, I pulled it out. It was Richard. But not recent Richard. This was from maybe 5 years ago, judging by his haircut. He was standing next to a woman I didn't recognize, his arm around her waist in a way that was decidedly not professional. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. It was the child between them. A little girl, maybe 3 years old, with Richard's distinctive green eyes and pointed chin. Mom. I spun around to find Jeremy in the doorway, homesick from school with a fever I now suspected he'd faked. What's that? He asked, coming closer. I should have hidden it. Should have put it back and pretended I'd never seen it. But my hands were shaking too badly. Jeremy took the photo from me, his eyes widening. Is that Dad? Who's the kid? Before I could answer, we heard Eleanor's voice from down the hall. Did you find it, dear? Just a minute. I called back, my voice surprisingly steady. I grabbed Eleanor's insurance card from the tray and started to put the photo back, but Jeremy stopped me. Wait, he whispered. He pulled out his phone and took a picture of the photograph. We need to know more. He was right. We did need to know more. And over the next 3 weeks we found out everything. The woman's name was Veronica Summers. The child was named Ella. Richard had been paying child support through a shell company for 4 years. Money siphoned from accounts he thought I didn't know about. But I did know. I'd always known. I just hadn't known what the money was for. Jeremy turned out to be surprisingly good at investigation. Maybe it was all those mystery novels he read, or maybe it was the computer skills he'd inherited from my brother, the one who worked in cybersecurity. Within days, he'd found Veronica's social media accounts, Ella's preschool records, even the apartment Richard had been renting for them. Why didn't he just divorce you years ago? Jeremy asked one night as we sat in my car outside Veronica's building, watching Richard's BMW pull into the garage. Your grandmother, I said simply. She controls the trust fund. Richard only gets full access when she dies or if she approves. And Eleanor would never approve of him leaving me for his paralegal. It would be too scandalous for her society friends. So he was waiting for her to die? I laughed bitterly. Kidney disease is usually fatal without treatment. He probably figured he had a year or two at most. But then you offered to get tested. And I was a match. I touched my side where the incision was still healing. They couldn't refuse without looking suspicious. But they also couldn't let me stay after. Not when Veronica was getting impatient. Jeremy was quiet for a long moment. We're going to destroy them, aren't we? I looked at my son, my beautiful, brilliant boy who'd stood by me through all of this. Do you think that makes me a bad person? I think it makes you human, he said. And I think they deserve whatever's coming to them. But even then, even with all that evidence, I might have just accepted the divorce. Might have taken my settlement and walked away. If they hadn't been so cruel about it. If they hadn't thrown it in my face at dinner, over the roast I'd lovingly prepared, 6 weeks after I'd given Eleanor my kidney. That's when I knew they needed to pay. Not just financially but completely. Utterly. I wanted them to lose everything the way they tried to make me lose everything. And Jeremy, my unexpected ally, was ready to help me do it. The morning after the dinner, I woke up with perfect clarity. Pain had crystallized into purpose and purpose into plan. Richard had already left for work, taking his mother to a follow-up appointment on the way. The house was quiet except for Jeremy's footsteps in his room above. I made coffee and opened my laptop. First things first, the lawyer. Not just any lawyer but Susan Sebastian. We'd gone to college together before she'd become one of the city's most ruthless divorce attorneys. Before I'd buried myself in suburban motherhood. He still remembered me though. Still remembered the girl who'd helped her pass organic chemistry, who'd held her hair back at parties, who'd kept her secrets. Julia. Her voice was sharp with surprise when she answered my call. Is that really you? I need your help, Sun San. I'll clear my morning. By the time I reached her office, she'd already pulled property records, financial statements, and a preliminary assessment of my situation. Susan didn't just practice law, she waged war with it. The house is in your name only, she said, sliding documents across her mahogany desk. Inherited from your aunt, correct? Never refinanced after marriage. Richard wanted to, but I always found excuses to delay. She smiled like a shark scenting blood. Smart girl. What else does he not know about? I told her about the investment accounts my grandmother had left me, hidden under my maiden name. The freelance work I'd been doing for major corporations under an LLC Richard knew nothing about. The storage unit full of evidence I'd been collecting for years, just in case. You've been preparing for this, Susan observed. I've been hoping I'd never need to, I corrected. But my mother always said to have an exit strategy. And the kidney donation? I showed her the medical records, the consent forms, the text from Eleanor begging me to get tested. Susan's expression darkened. They waited until after you donated to serve papers? 6 weeks after. She leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. That's calculatedly cruel. A judge won't like that. Especially Judge Martinez, she's big on family values and medical ethics. I'll make sure this lands on her docket. There's more, I said and showed her the photo Jeremy had found. Told her about Veronica, about Ella, about the secret apartment and the shell company. Susan actually laughed. Oh, this is beautiful. Hidden assets, adultery, fraud. And the mother knew. She knew everything. I have recordings. Her eyebrows shot up. Recordings. I pulled out my phone and played one of the videos Jeremy had secretly captured. Eleanor and Richard discussing the divorce timeline, making sure it was long enough after the surgery that I couldn't claim coercion but soon enough that I wouldn't have time to recover fully and fight back. Your son recorded this? He's been recording everything for 3 weeks. Ever since we found out about Veronica. Susan stood and walked to her window looking out at the city below. Julia, with this evidence I can destroy them. But are you prepared for that? Once we start this, there's no going back. They took my kidney and tried to throw me away like trash, I said quietly. They used my love for my family against me. They made my son watch his father betray his mother over dinner. Yes, I'm prepared. She turned back to me and for a moment I saw the girl I'd known in college. The one who'd been betrayed by her first husband and had transformed that pain into a career of protecting others. Then let's begin, she said. But first we need to secure assets. Richard's probably already moving money. He was right. But Richard had made one crucial mistake. He taught me all his passwords over the years for emergencies. And he was terrible about changing them. That afternoon, while Richard was at work, I systematically documented every account, every asset, every penny. I found more than even I had expected. Offshore accounts. Investment properties he'd hidden. And most damning of all, emails between him and Veronica dating back 3 years, not one. Jeremy helped, his fingers flying over his laptop keyboard. Mom, look at this, he said, turning his screen toward me. It was Eleanor's email account. My brilliant son had somehow gotten access. How did you? She saved her password on her tablet. The one I set up for her last month. He grinned. She's been emailing someone named Margaret about the divorce. Look what she wrote. I read the email, my stomach churning. Finally getting rid of that pathetic woman. Can you believe she actually fell for the whole family emergency act? As if I would ever consider her real family. The kidney was just a bonus. Now I'll live long enough to see Richard with someone worthy of our name. Download everything, I told him. Every email, every message, every photo. As the files transferred, I called Susan. How do you feel about fraud charges on top of the divorce? I'm listening. I explained about the emails, the conspiracy between Richard and Eleanor to deceive me into donating the kidney. That's medical fraud, Susan said slowly. Obtaining an organ donation under false pretenses. That's actually criminal, not just civil. Can we prove it? With those emails and recordings? Absolutely. Julia, this isn't just about divorce anymore. This could mean jail time for both of them. I looked at Jeremy, who was watching me intently. Do it, I said. File everything. Richard didn't realize anything was wrong for 3 days. He went to work, came home late, avoided me as usual. Eleanor continued living in my house, eating my food, using my kidney to filter her blood, all while smirking whenever our paths crossed. On the 4th day, Richard's world began to crumble. It started with his credit cards being declined at lunch with clients. Then his key card stopped working at the office. By the time he got to the bank to demand answers, Susan had already frozen all our joint assets pending the divorce investigation. He came home in a rage, slamming the door so hard the pictures rattled on the walls. "What did you do?" he screamed, finding me calmly working on my laptop in the kitchen. "I protected my assets," I replied without looking up. "My lawyer advised me to freeze joint accounts until we can properly divide them." "Your lawyer?" His face was purple. "You weren't supposed to get a lawyer. The papers were standard. All you had to do was sign." "Why would I sign anything without legal representation? You taught me that, remember? Never sign anything without reading it first. Never proceed without counsel." He grabbed the laptop and I let him. There was nothing on it he could use. Everything important was encrypted and backed up in 3 different locations. "This is Susan Sebastian's doing," he spat, recognizing the legal letterhead on the screen. "How can you afford her?" "Turns out I have more resources than you knew about," I said mildly. "Funny how 15 years of marriage and you never really knew me at all." Eleanor appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Richard, what's happening?" "My credit card was declined at the pharmacy." "Mom's being vindictive," he told her. "But it won't last. I'll call Judge Harrison. He owes me a favor." "Judge Harrison retired last month," I informed him. "Our case has been assigned to Judge Martinez. Susan says she's very interested in the circumstances of our separation." The color drained from Richard's face. Everyone knew Judge Martinez. She was famous for 3 things: protecting women in divorce proceedings, harsh sentences for fraud, and absolutely destroying men who abandoned their families. "You can't prove anything," Eleanor said, but her voice shook. Jeremy walked in then, earbuds in, pretending not to notice the tension. He grabbed an apple from the counter and took a bite. "Oh, Dad, someone from your office called. Said something about an emergency audit? And someone named Veronica is looking for you." She sounded upset. Richard's phone started ringing. Then Eleanor's. Then the landline. They didn't answer any of them. "You should probably take those," I suggested. "Sounds important." Richard grabbed his phone and walked out. We could hear his voice rising in panic from the garage. Eleanor stared at me, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked afraid. "What have you done?" she whispered. "Nothing compared to what you did to me," I replied. "But the night's still young." She fled to her room. Jeremy and I sat at the kitchen counter, sharing his apple in companionable silence. "The forensic accountant found the shell company," he said quietly. "Susan just texted. And $300,000. Hidden from marital assets while paying for his mistress and secret child." I did quick math. In our state, hiding assets meant he'd forfeit them entirely to the injured party. Me. Plus penalties. "The house is already mine," I mused. "His 401k will be split. But with the hidden assets." "You'll be fine, Mom. More than fine." Richard stormed back in, his phone clutched in his hand. "Veronica's being evicted." "You had her evicted." "I didn't do anything," I said truthfully. "But when the forensic accountant alerted the court to fraud, they froze all assets connected to the case, including the apartment you rented under the shell company, the one you've been paying for with marital funds." "That's my daughter's home." Jeremy stood up slowly. "You have a daughter?" The silence was deafening. Richard realized what he'd just admitted. In front of his son. His legitimate son, who hadn't known about his half-sister until this moment. My boy was a better actor than I'd given him credit for. The hurt on his face looked so real even I almost believed it. How could you? Jeremy whispered. How could you do this to us? Jeremy, son, it's complicated. No. Jeremy backed away. You made me lie to Mom for years. Every time you said you were working late, I believed you. Every time you missed my games for client dinners, I defended you. And you had another family. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Jeremy's voice cracked perfectly. Tell me how it's okay that you cheated on Mom, had a secret kid, and then divorced her after she saved Grandma's life. Eleanor tried to intervene. Jeremy, sweetheart, your father. Don't. He turned on her, and the venom in his voice was real now. You knew. You knew everything, and you let Mom donate her kidney anyway. You used her. She was a match, Eleanor said weakly. I needed. You needed someone you could throw away after, Jeremy finished. God, you're both monsters. He stormed out, slamming his door hard enough to shake the house. Richard started after him, but I stood, blocking his path. Don't you dare, I said quietly. You've hurt him enough. He's my son. Yes, I agreed. And he just learned his father is a liar, a cheater, and a fraud. Give him space. Richard's phone rang again. This time he answered. What do you mean, suspended pending investigation? His voice rose an octave. The partners can't. I'm a partner. But apparently they could. And they had. The managing partner had received copies of interesting documents that morning. Emails showing Richard had been using company resources for his affair. Billing hours to clients while meeting Veronica. Using the company card for their dinners and hotels. Susan had been thorough. Richard sank into a chair, his face gray. This is destruction of property. Defamation. I'll sue. With what money? I asked. And which lawyer? Every decent attorney in the city knows Susan. They won't take a case against her. Not one this obviously lost. Eleanor appeared in the doorway, clutching her phone. The country club called. They're reviewing our membership. Something about moral clauses and criminal investigations. Criminal. Richard's head snapped up. I smiled sweetly. Oh, didn't I mention? The DA's office is very interested in the fraud aspect. Specifically, obtaining an organ donation through false pretenses and conspiracy. Turns out that's a felony. The next week was a symphony of destruction, each day bringing a new movement in Richard and Eleanor's downfall. Monday, the country club officially revoked their membership. Eleanor's entire social circle turned their backs overnight. The same women who'd lunched with her for decades suddenly didn't return her calls. Tuesday, Richard's partners voted him out of the firm. 15 years of building his practice, gone. They offered him a choice. Leave quietly with a minimal severance or fight it and have everything made public. Wednesday, Veronica was arrested for fraud. Turns out she'd been embezzling from the firm too, with Richard's unwitting help. She sang like a canary to the cops, throwing Richard under every bus she could find. Thursday, the medical board opened an investigation into the kidney donation after receiving an anonymous tip about coercion and fraud. Eleanor's doctor was horrified to learn the truth. Friday, the news broke. Somehow, and I honestly had nothing to do with this part, a reporter got wind of the story. Local attorney divorces wife after secret kidney donation to mother made the evening news. By Saturday, Richard was begging. He showed up at my bedroom door at 3 a.m, disheveled and reeking of whiskey. Julia, please. We can work this out. I sat up in bed, pulling my robe around me. There's nothing to work out. You served me divorce papers, remember? Over pot roast. That was a mistake. Mother pushed me into it. Veronica was threatening. To tell the truth? He flinched. To take Ella and disappear. She said if I didn't leave you, she'd make sure I never saw my daughter again. So you chose them. I chose my child. What about our child? I asked quietly. What about Jeremy? Did you think about him at all? Richard's shoulders slumped. I thought he'd understand. Eventually. I thought I could make him understand. Understand what? That you're a liar? That you betrayed his mother? That you valued your secret family more than your real one? You were never supposed to find out about them. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's your defense? That you're bad at deception? I loved you once, he said desperately. When we first married, I loved you. But not enough. Never enough. He moved closer and I could see the desperation in his eyes. Call off the lawyers. Please. I'll give you whatever you want in the divorce, just stop the criminal investigation. They're talking about charging me with conspiracy to commit medical fraud. I could go to prison. You should have thought of that before. My mother could lose the kidney. They said if it's proven she obtained it fraudulently, she could be removed from all transplant lists. Forever. It would be a death sentence. I touched my scar, the one that still ached. She should have thought of that before she said she never liked me anyway. Julia, please. Get out. But he didn't move. Instead, he grabbed my hands, falling to his knees beside the bed. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was weak and stupid and cruel. But please don't do this. Think of Jeremy. Think of what it would do to him if his father went to prison. Jeremy knows exactly what's happening, I said, pulling my hands away. And he supports me completely. As if on cue, Jeremy appeared in the doorway, his phone in his hand, recording everything. Dad, you need to leave, he said calmly. Now. Richard stared at his son, then at the phone. You're recording this? I record everything now, Jeremy said. Mom's lawyer suggested it. For our protection. Our. Mom and me. We're a team. The only real family I have left. The words hit Richard like physical blows. He stumbled to his feet, looking between us. This isn't over, he said, but his voice was hollow. Yes, it is, I replied. Your lawyer will receive the settlement terms on Monday. I suggest you accept them. After he left, Jeremy sat on the edge of my bed. You okay, Mom? Are you? I countered. That couldn't have been easy to hear. He was quiet for a moment. You know what the worst part is? I keep thinking about all the times he made you feel bad for not contributing enough financially. Remember when he said your freelance work was just a hobby? And the whole time he was stealing from marital assets to support his mistress. People show you who they are, I said, pulling him into a hug. We just have to be willing to see it. I see you, Mom. And you're the strongest person I know. The criminal trial began 2 months later. Richard and Eleanor sat at the defendant's table, their expensive lawyers unable to hide how damning the evidence was. I testified for 3 hours, walking the jury through the timeline. The diagnosis, the search for a donor, Eleanor's tearful pleas for me to get tested. The surgery, the recovery, and then the divorce papers served over dinner. Susan had coached me well. Stay calm. Stick to facts. Let the evidence speak. And the evidence screamed. The emails between Richard and Eleanor planning the timeline. The recordings Jeremy had made. The financial records showing the conspiracy went back years. The medical forms I'd signed, believing I was saving my family, not enabling my own betrayal. Mrs. Winters, the prosecutor asked, why did you agree to donate your kidney? Because I loved them, I said simply. Eleanor was my family. I couldn't stand by and watch her die when I had the power to save her. And how do you feel now, knowing it was all a manipulation? I looked directly at Eleanor. Like I was harvested. Like I was livestock they kept around just long enough to get what they needed. Eleanor couldn't meet my eyes. The jury deliberated for only 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Richard got 3 years for fraud and conspiracy. With good behavior, he'd be out in 18 months. His law license was permanently revoked. Eleanor's sentence was lighter. 2 years probation and community service. But the medical board's decision was what really destroyed her. She was permanently banned from all transplant lists. The kidney I'd given her would be the last one she'd ever receive. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Jeremy stayed close, protective and solid beside me. Mrs. Winters, how does it feel to see justice served? It doesn't give me my kidney back, I said. But it does give me closure. What's next for you? I thought about the settlement I'd received. The house that was now fully mine. The fresh start waiting for us. Healing, I said. Just healing. 6 months after the trial, I stood in the doorway of what used to be Eleanor's room. It was empty now, waiting for its transformation into my new home office. The woman herself was living in a small apartment across town, her society friends having abandoned her completely. Last I heard, she was working part-time as a receptionist to make ends meet. The trust fund Richard had been counting on? Frozen by the courts pending civil lawsuits from the law firm he'd defrauded. Jeremy was at school, thriving in ways he never had before. Without the toxic presence of his father and grandmother, he'd blossomed. Straight A's, captain of the debate team, and surprisingly, a girlfriend who adored him. "You sure you want to paint it yellow?" he'd asked that morning, looking at the color swatches I'd chosen. "It's the color of new beginnings," I told him. "Of sunshine after storms." He'd hugged me then, taller than me now, but still my baby. "We made it through, didn't we, Mom?" "We did." The doorbell rang, interrupting my contemplation. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened the door, I found a young woman with familiar green eyes and a pointed chin. "Oh, Richard's other daughter. Mrs. Winters?" she said nervously. I know who you are," I said gently. "Come in." She was 5 now, clutching a teddy bear and looking lost. Behind her stood a social worker. "I'm sorry to bother you," the social worker said, "but you're listed as next of kin." I blinked, confused. "I'm what?" "Mr. Winters listed you as emergency contact for Ella. With him incarcerated and Ms. Summers also serving time, we need to place Ella temporarily." "He listed me?" I couldn't hide my shock. "After everything?" The social worker handed me a letter. Richard's handwriting, shaky but recognizable. "Julia, I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I destroyed our family, betrayed your trust, and caused you immeasurable pain. But Ella is innocent in all this. She's just a little girl who's lost everything. You were the best mother Jeremy could have asked for. You're the only person I trust to show Ella that kind of love. Even if it's just until I get out, please. She needs someone good in her life. I'm sorry for everything. Richard." I looked at the little girl, saw Jeremy in her eyes, saw innocence caught in the crossfire of adult cruelty. "What happens if I say no?" I asked the social worker. "Foster care." Ella's grip on her teddy bear tightened. She was trying so hard to be brave, this little girl who'd done nothing wrong except be born to the wrong parents. "Mom." Jeremy had come home early, standing behind me in the doorway. He looked at Ella, understanding immediately who she was. "She's my sister," he said. It wasn't a question. "Half-sister," I corrected automatically. He knelt down to Ella's level. "Hi, I'm Jeremy. That's a cool bear. What's its name?" "Mr. Buttons," she whispered. "Mr. Buttons looks like he could use some cookies. Mom makes the best cookies. Want to help us make some?" Ella looked up at me uncertainly. "Are you my mommy now?" My heart cracked. This little girl had lost everything. Her mother in prison, her father too, her home gone. She was collateral damage in a war she'd never asked for. "I'm Jeremy's mommy," I said carefully. "But you can stay with us for a while if you'd like." The social worker handed me paperwork. "It's temporary guardianship. Just until other arrangements can be made." But looking at Jeremy already taking Ella's hand, leading her to the kitchen while chattering about chocolate chips versus sugar cookies, I knew nothing about this would be temporary. Richard had taken my kidney, but inadvertently given me another child to love. The irony wasn't lost on me. 3 years passed. Ella called me Mama Julia now, had her own room painted purple, her choice, and followed Jeremy around like a devoted shadow. He just started college locally, refusing to go further away. "Someone needs to help with the munchkin," he'd said, ruffling Ella's hair. Richard had been released after 18 months but had never petitioned for custody. He saw Ella's supervised visits once a month, looking grayer and older each time. He'd found work as a paralegal, ironic considering, and lived in a studio apartment downtown. Eleanor we saw occasionally at the grocery store or bank. The kidney was failing again, rejection setting in despite the anti-rejection drugs. Without the possibility of another transplant, her time was limited. She tried reaching out once, a letter full of apologies and regrets, but I'd returned it unopened. Some bridges once burned couldn't be rebuilt. "Mama Julia, can you help with my family tree project?" Ella asked one evening, spreading construction paper across the kitchen table. "Of course, sweetheart." She drew carefully, her tongue poking out in concentration. At the top she put Jeremy and me. Then herself. Then, after hesitation, she added Richard to the side, connected by a dotted line. "Is this okay?" she asked anxiously. "Mrs. Peterson says family trees are about showing who loves us." "It's perfect," I assured her. Jeremy came in from basketball practice, sweaty and grinning. "What's perfect?" "Pie family tree." Ella showed him proudly. Look, you're at the top with Mama Julia. As it should be, he said, dropping a kiss on her head. We're the awesome branch of this family tree. Later that evening, after Ella was asleep, Jeremy found me on the porch watching the sunset. You know what I realized today? He said, settling beside me. What's that? We won. Not the court case, yeah, that too, but really won. We're happy. We have Ella. The house is ours. You're doing amazing with your design business. And Dad and Grandma? They're just existing. Revenge isn't supposed to taste sweet, I said, though I understood what he meant. It's not revenge anymore, though, is it? It's just life. We built something better from the ashes. He was right. My freelance business had exploded after the trial. Apparently, surviving a public betrayal and winning made me someone people wanted to hire. She's a fighter, they'd say. I want that kind of strength on my team. Do you ever regret it? Jeremy asked. Everything we did? Do you? He thought for a moment. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that Dad turned out to be who he was. But the actions we took, well, we protected ourselves. We got justice. And we got Ella out of it. She's the unexpected gift, I agreed. My phone buzzed. Eleanor's number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Julia. Her voice was weak, raspy. I'm in the hospital. Okay. I'm dying. I said nothing. The kidney's failing. Complete rejection. They're saying days, maybe a week. I'm sorry to hear that. She laughed, but it turned into a cough. No, you're not. And you shouldn't be. I wouldn't be in your place. What do you want, Eleanor? To apologize. Really apologize. Not for my benefit. I know I'm beyond redemption. But for yours. You gave me 3 extra years of life. 3 years I didn't deserve. And I spent them alone, abandoned, facing the consequences of my actions. But still, they were 3 years. Eleanor. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just acknowledging what you did. Even knowing who I was, you gave me an organ. That's a kind of good I can't understand. Richard and I, we thought it made you weak. But it didn't, did it? It made you strong enough to survive us. I was quiet for a long moment. Thank you for saying that. Take care of Ella. She's lucky to have you. Luckier than she'll ever know. The line went dead. 3 days later, so did Eleanor. I stand in the doorway of what used to be my home, but it's different now. Better. The walls are painted in warm colors Ella and I chose together. The pictures on the walls show our real family. Jeremy graduating from college, Ella's first day of school, the 3 of us at the beach last summer. Behind me, car doors slam. Jeremy's home from law school for the weekend, bringing his fiancée Sophie to meet us properly. He'd called earlier, voice shaking with excitement and nerves. Mom, I'm going to propose this weekend. At the house. Where we rebuilt everything. Is that okay? More than okay. Perfect. Ella races past me, now 10 and all legs and energy, launching herself at her brother. Jeremy. I made honor roll. He catches her, spins her around. Of course you did, genius. You're my sister. Sophie smiles at me over their heads, and I see why Jeremy loves her. She looks at him the way I once looked at Richard, but there's something more there. Respect, equality, partnership. Mrs. Winters, she says warmly. Thank you for having me. Julia, please. And you're always welcome. Richard arrives an hour later for his monthly dinner with Ella. He looks older, grayer, smaller somehow. Prison and disgrace had carved lines into his face that would never fade. He brings Chinese takeout, Ella's favorite, and sits quietly at the table that once hosted his betrayal. The house looks good, he says carefully. It looks like home, I correct. He nods, watches Ella chatter to Sophie about her science project, watches Jeremy help her with her chopsticks. You did good, Julia. With both of them. With everything. We did what we had to do. No, he says quietly. You did more than that. You could have turned Ella away. Could have poisoned Jeremy against me completely. Could have destroyed me even more thoroughly than you did. But you didn't. I did what was right for the children. Both of them. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out an envelope. I've been saving. It's not much, but I want to contribute to Ella's college fund. And this. He pulls out a second envelope. This is for Jeremy. For law school. Richard. Please. Let me do this one thing right. I take the envelopes. Thank you. After dinner, after Richard leaves with promises to take Ella to the Science Museum next month. After Sophie and Jeremy disappear for a walk where I know he'll propose by the garden I planted over Eleanor's ashes. She'd left instructions that I scatter them, a final irony. Ella and I sit on the porch. Mama Julia, can I ask you something? Always. My dad did something bad to you, didn't he? Before I came to live here. I consider my words carefully. He made some poor choices that hurt our family. But you let me stay anyway. You weren't responsible for his choices. You're your own person, Ella. And you're wonderful. She leans against me and I feel the familiar ache of my scar. It never fully goes away, that reminder of what I gave and what was taken. But sitting here with Ella beside me and Jeremy's laughter floating from the garden, I realize something. They took my kidney, but I kept my heart. They tried to break me, but I became unbreakable. They thought they were discarding me like trash, but I turned into treasure. Mama Julia? Yes, sweetheart. I love you. I love you too. Jeremy and Sophie return, her hand sporting a ring that catches the porch light. Our eyes meet and I see my son. The man he's become, the lawyer he'll be, the husband and father he'll grow into. Nothing like Richard. Everything I'd hoped. Mom, he says, pulling Sophie forward. We have something to tell you. I smile, stand, embrace them both. Welcome to the family, Sophie. Ella squeals, joins the hug, and we stand there, the four of us, a family built not from betrayal but from its ashes. Stronger for being broken. Whole for being scarred. The scar across my abdomen throbs as it always does when I feel deeply. But now I understand it's not pain, it's proof. Proof that I survived. Proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's resurrection. It's taking what they meant for evil and turning it into something beautiful. It's raising their children to be better than they ever were. It's finding happiness in the ruins of their cruelty. It's living well completely and without them. Come on, I say, leading my family inside. Let's celebrate. The door closes behind us, shutting out the past, sealing in our future. The house that witnessed betrayal now holds triumph. The table where divorce papers were served now hosts engagement celebrations. Me, the woman they thought was nothing, whom they never really knew. I'm everything they never suspected I could be. I'm unbreakable. I'm victorious. I'm home.